Get out of my hotel before I call security." The words sliced through the quiet lobby like a blade, loud enough that every conversation stopped mid-sentence and every pair of eyes turned toward the front desk. The Horizon Grand Hotel in downtown Chicago had been calm just seconds earlier. Soft jazz drifting from hidden speakers, the faint scent of polished marble and expensive coffee hanging in the air, rolling suitcases whispering across the floor. But now the atmosphere shifted, tight and electric, because standing in the center of that lobby was a man the staff had already decided didn't belong. Malik Jefferson didn't look like the kind of guest people expected to see walking into a five-star hotel. He wore a simple charcoal hoodie, worn blue jeans, and sneakers that had clearly seen a few city miles. No designer logo, no luggage cart, no assistant trailing behind him with a clipboard. Just a quiet man in his late 40s standing calmly at the front desk, while the manager glared at him like he had just walked into the wrong building. The manager's name badge read Daniel Mercer, and the confidence in his posture came from years of believing he could judge a person in 3 seconds flat. He glanced Malik up and down once more, the way someone might inspect a problem before pushing it out the door. "I said leave," Mercer repeated, louder this time, his voice echoing against the high glass ceiling. A few guests nearby shifted uncomfortably. A couple visiting from Denver paused beside the concierge desk, their curiosity stronger than their politeness. Someone near the elevators slowly lifted a phone, the small red recording light flickering on. Malik didn't raise his voice. He didn't step back either. He simply rested one hand on the polished counter and spoke in a calm tone that somehow made the room even quieter. "I have a reservation," he said, sliding his driver's license across the marble. Mercer didn't even look at it. "People try this trick all the time," he snapped. "Walk in, flash some fake ID, hope we don't check." A few staff members behind the desk exchanged quick smirks, the kind that form when a room decides someone has already lost. Malik's expression never changed. He had seen that look before, the mixture of certainty and dismissal that came from assumptions made too quickly. But the tension snapped a moment. Later, when Mercer stepped around the desk, his frustration boiling over into a sudden motion that sent a sharp crack of sound across the lobby. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones lifted higher. For a split second, even Mercer seemed surprised by how loud the moment felt once it echoed off the marble walls. Malik didn't react the way people expected. He didn't shout. He didn't move toward the door. Instead, he slowly straightened his posture and looked around the lobby as if studying the room itself, the chandeliers, the front desk, the employees frozen in place. Then his eyes settled back on Mercer with a calm steadiness that made the manager's confidence flicker for the first time. Because the man standing there in a hoodie wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't rattled. If anything, he looked like someone quietly taking notes. And what no one in that lobby knew yet, what Mercer especially didn't realize, was that Malik Jefferson hadn't walked into the wrong hotel that morning. He had walked into one he owned. The lobby of the Horizon Grand did not return to normal after that moment. Instead, the air seemed to tighten, as if the entire room understood something unusual had just happened, but no one yet knew what it meant. Malik Jefferson remained standing at the front desk, calm and composed, his posture steady in a way that did not match the tension rippling through the marble lobby. Guests who had been checking their phones only minutes earlier were now watching openly. A businessman near the elevators slowly lowered the newspaper he had been pretending to read. A young woman visiting from Seattle held her phone halfway up, uncertain whether she should keep recording or quietly slip it back into her purse. Even the concierge across the room stopped typing. Daniel Mercer, however, still carried the confidence of a man convinced he was in control. He adjusted his jacket and folded his arms as though the scene had already ended. "I do not know why you are still standing here," he said sharply. "This is a private hotel, and we reserve the right to remove anyone who does not belong." The words hung in the air, heavy with assumption. Malik looked at him for a long second, not with anger, not even with frustration, but with the patient attention of someone observing a problem unfold exactly as expected. What no one in that lobby knew yet was that this visit had never been a random stop. Malik Jefferson had spent the last 20 years building Jefferson Hospitality Group into one of the most respected hotel companies in the United States. 17 luxury properties across 6 states carried his company name, and the Horizon Grand in Chicago was one of the newest additions to that portfolio. 2 years earlier, his firm had quietly acquired the building as part of a major expansion into the Midwest. But Malik rarely announced his visits ahead of time. He believed that the truest test of service happened when no one expected the owner to walk through the front door. That morning, he had left his penthouse apartment on the north side of the city wearing the same comfortable hoodie he often wore on weekend mornings. No driver, no security team, just a 10-minute walk through the crisp Chicago air and a quiet entrance through the revolving glass doors. He had planned to spend 15 minutes in the lobby, observe the staff, and perhaps speak with the manager about a few operational ideas before heading to another meeting across town. Instead, he found himself standing in the center of a lobby that now felt less like a hotel and more like a stage where every movement carried weight. Behind the desk, two employees whispered to each other while glancing nervously toward Mercer. One of them, a young receptionist named Emily Carter, whose training badge still hung beside her name tag, stared down at the computer monitor in front of her. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard as though she wanted to say something, but was unsure whether she should. Malik noticed the hesitation immediately. It was the same quiet uncertainty he had seen many times before in workplaces where speaking up could carry consequences. Mercer leaned forward again, his voice rising with impatience. "Security will be here in a minute," he said. "You can explain your story to them outside." A few guests shifted uneasily. The couple from Denver exchanged looks that said the situation felt wrong, but they were not sure how to step into it. Somewhere near the entrance, another phone camera tilted slightly for a better angle. Malik finally reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, the movement slow and deliberate. The screen lit his face softly as he scrolled through. A contact list. When he spoke, his tone was quiet enough that Mercer almost missed the words. "Good morning, Angela," Malik said calmly once the call connected. "I need you to open the executive dashboard for the Horizon Grand." On the other end of the line, Angela Ruiz, his chief operations officer, recognized his voice immediately. "Right now?" she asked. Malik glanced around the lobby one more time, taking in the staff, the guests, the cameras, and the manager who still believed he was dealing with the wrong man in the wrong place. "Yes," Malik replied evenly. "Right now would be perfect." Angela Ruiz did not waste time asking unnecessary questions, because after 8 years working beside Malik Jefferson, she understood the tone in his voice better than most people understood words. "The executive dashboard is opening now," she said from her office nearly 900 miles away in Dallas. The faint clicking of her keyboard carried through the phone while the system connected to the Horizon Grand's internal network. Malik kept the phone at his ear, but his eyes remained calmly fixed on the lobby in front of him. Nothing in his posture suggested urgency. In fact, the stillness around him seemed almost deliberate, as though he had decided that the best response to the moment was patience. Daniel Mercer, however, interpreted that calm very differently. To him, it looked like hesitation. The manager let out a short laugh and glanced toward the guests who were still watching. "Calling someone to help you make up a story is not going to change anything," he said loudly. "Security will escort you out in about 30 seconds. The statement carried the confidence of someone who believed the outcome had already been decided. Behind the desk, two hotel employees shifted nervously. Emily Carter stared again at the computer monitor in front of her. The reservation system glowed on the screen, rows of guest information scrolling quietly in blue and white columns. Her training told her to follow the manager's lead, but something about the situation did not sit right. She typed a few letters into the search field almost without thinking. JEFF. The system responded instantly. A name appeared near the top of the results list, and Emily felt her stomach tighten. Malik Jefferson. The profile contained a tag she had never seen before during her short time working. At the hotel, executive owner clearance. Her eyes widened and she quickly looked toward Mercer, then back at the screen as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something less shocking. Across the lobby, the quiet murmur of guests continued to grow. A man standing near the bar whispered to his wife that the situation felt strange. A young college student visiting Chicago held her phone steady, recording the scene with the kind of curiosity people rarely hide anymore. Mercer paced a few steps toward the entrance doors as though expecting security to appear at any second. "This is exactly why hotels have policies," he said to no one in particular. "People walk in pretending they belong." Malik listened to the words without reacting. Instead, he spoke again into the phone with the same calm tone. Angela, do you have access to the lobby cameras? Angela paused only briefly. Yes, I am looking at them right now. Hundreds of miles away, the Horizon Grand lobby appeared on her monitor through multiple security angles. She could see Mercer pacing. She could see the guests holding their phones. And she could see Malik standing quietly in the center of it all. Angela had worked in corporate operations long enough to recognize a moment that would soon become very expensive for someone. The entire executive team can see this feed if necessary, she said carefully. Malik nodded slightly, though Angela could not see it through the phone. That will not be necessary yet, he replied. The word yet seemed to drift through the lobby like a warning no one fully understood. Behind the desk, Emily's fingers trembled slightly over the keyboard. The profile on her screen remained open, bright, and undeniable. Owner. She swallowed and glanced toward Malik again, suddenly realizing that the calm man in the hoodie was not lost or confused or trespassing the way Mercer believed. He was standing exactly where he had every right to stand. The realization felt almost surreal. For a brief moment, Emily considered speaking up, but Mercer's voice cut through her thoughts again. There is the door, the manager said firmly while pointing toward the revolving glass entrance. I suggest you start walking. Malik slowly lowered the phone from his ear, but did not put it away. Instead, he looked around the lobby once more, studying the faces of the employees, the guests, and the manager who still believed he controlled the room. Then he spoke with a quiet steadiness that made several people lean forward to hear. Daniel, Malik said, reading the name from the badge on the manager's jacket. You are about to learn something very important about this hotel. The sentence was not loud. It did not need to be. Because for the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty began to spread through the lobby like a ripple across still water. Daniel Mercer blinked once as if the words Malik had just spoken needed a second to settle into place. For the first time since the confrontation began, the certainty in his posture shifted slightly. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough for the tension in the room to grow sharper. The lobby of the Horizon Grand had become completely still. Even the quiet jazz music drifting from the ceiling speakers seemed softer now, as though the building itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Mercer cleared his throat and forced a small laugh that sounded more confident than he felt. I am not learning anything from you, he said. You are standing in a hotel you do not belong in. The words came quickly, almost too quickly, as if repeating them might make them more believable. Malik Jefferson did not argue. He simply studied the man in front of him with the calm attention of someone observing a situation unfold exactly the way he expected. Across the lobby, several guests had moved closer without realizing it. The couple from Denver now stood near the concierge desk. The college student with the phone camera adjusted her angle again, whispering to her friend that something strange was about to happen. Behind the front desk, Emily Carter felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The glowing profile on her computer screen had not changed. Malik Jefferson, owner clearance. She looked up again, her eyes moving from the monitor to the man standing in the hoodie and back again, as if her brain was struggling to reconcile the two images. Everything about the situation now felt wrong. Mercer, however, remained focused on the outcome he had already decided. He stepped forward again, pointing firmly toward the glass doors. Last warning, he said. You can walk out calmly or security will remove you. The threat hung in the air like a closing door. Malik slowly slipped his phone into his pocket, but his calm expression did not change. Instead, he glanced toward the front desk, and for the briefest moment his eyes met Emily's. It was not an intimidating look or an angry one. If anything, it felt steady and patient, like someone silently acknowledging that the truth was already sitting right in front of her. Emily swallowed. Her training told her not to contradict a manager, especially not in the middle of a scene involving guests. But the letters on the screen refused to disappear. She felt as though the entire lobby was balancing on the edge of something important. Daniel, she said quietly. The manager ignored her. Daniel, she tried again, a little louder this time. Mercer turned slightly with clear irritation. What is it? He snapped. Emily hesitated only one more second before speaking. His name is in the system. The words landed like a stone dropped into water. Mercer frowned. What are you talking about? Emily turned the monitor toward him. The screen reflected faintly in his glasses as he leaned closer. For a brief moment, the manager said nothing. The profile remained there in clean blue letters under the Horizon Grand Database header. Malik Jefferson, Executive Owner Clearance. Mercer stared at the screen, his mind moving quickly through explanations that would allow him to dismiss what he was seeing. A mistake in the system. A coincidence. Someone else with the same name. But the photo attached to the profile told a different story. It showed the same calm face now standing across the lobby wearing a simple hoodie. Mercer straightened up slowly and looked back at Malik, the first trace of uncertainty finally creeping into his voice. "This does not prove anything," he said, though the conviction behind the words had clearly weakened. Guests nearby exchanged quiet murmurs. The couple from Denver leaned closer together. The college student whispered, "Wait, what did the screen say?" Malik watched the moment unfold without interrupting. Then he spoke again, his voice steady and clear enough for several people to hear. "The system is usually very accurate." Mercer's jaw tightened. The manager looked once more at the screen and then at the man standing calmly in front of him. For the first time since the encounter began, the room no longer felt like it belonged to him. And slowly, like a crack spreading through glass, the realization began to settle across the lobby that the quiet man everyone had been questioning might not be a stranger at all. The words hung in the air after Malik spoke them, quiet but impossible to ignore. "The system is usually very accurate." For several seconds, no one in the Horizon Grand lobby said anything. Daniel Mercer looked back at the monitor as though staring at it longer might somehow rearrange the letters into a different name. But the profile remained unchanged. Malik Jefferson, Executive Owner Clearance. Mercer felt a flicker of irritation rise in his chest because uncertainty was not something he tolerated easily. In his mind, the situation still had a simple explanation. "Systems make mistakes," he said quickly, stepping back from the desk. "Anyone with basic knowledge could have manipulated the database." His voice sounded firmer now, but the guests standing nearby did not react the way he expected. Instead, a low murmur moved through the lobby like wind across water. The couple from Denver looked at each other with raised eyebrows. The college student holding her phone whispered to her friend that the screen had clearly shown the same man standing in front of them. Even one of the bellhops near the entrance leaned slightly forward, as if trying to understand how the moment had turned so quickly. Behind the desk, Emily Carter felt the weight of the situation pressing harder against her chest. The information on the screen was not vague or questionable. It was clear and detailed, including internal notes, ownership documentation, and a photograph that matched Malik perfectly. She had spent weeks learning the hotel reservation system, and she knew the difference between a normal guest profile and one that carried executive access. The profile in front of her was the highest level she had ever seen. "Daniel," she said again carefully, her voice quieter now, but far more certain. "This is not a regular account. It has corporate authorization." Mercer's jaw tightened. The words sounded like doubt, and doubt was something he had never allowed to appear in front of guests. "You are new here," he replied sharply. "You do not understand how these things work." He turned away from the desk as though dismissing the information entirely. Malik Jefferson watched the exchange without interruption. His calm expression had not changed once since the moment the screen revealed his name. Yet behind that calm was a memory that had shaped much of his life. For a brief second, the lobby around him seemed to fade, and he remembered another hotel lobby nearly 25 years earlier. He had been 23 years old then, fresh out of college and working his first job in real estate development. He had walked into a hotel in Atlanta wearing a similar hoodie and asked about renting a conference room for a small investor meeting. The manager that day had taken one glance at him and laughed before telling him the rooms were already booked. Malik later discovered that the rooms had been empty the entire afternoon. That moment had stayed with him longer than the manager ever realized. It was the reason he had spent years building a company that believed hospitality should never depend on appearances. The memory passed as quickly as it arrived, and Malik returned his attention to the present moment. The Horizon Grand lobby was still watching. Mercer finally crossed his arms again and looked directly at Malik with forced confidence. "Even if your name is somewhere in the system," he said, "that does not mean you are the person connected to it." A few guests exchanged skeptical looks. The explanation sounded weaker each time he spoke. Malik tilted his head slightly, as though considering the argument with genuine curiosity. Then he asked a simple question. "Daniel, how long have you worked at this hotel?" Mercer blinked at the unexpected change in direction. 3 years, he replied cautiously. Malik nodded once. That is long enough to understand something important about hospitality. The room grew quiet again as several people leaned closer to hear the next words. Malik's voice remained steady and measured, but the meaning carried through the entire lobby. You should always know who you are welcoming through the front door. The sentence did not sound like a threat. It sounded like a lesson. And for the first time since the confrontation began, Daniel Mercer felt the uncomfortable sense that the situation was slipping beyond his control while the man he had tried to remove stood exactly where he intended to be. Daniel Mercer did not respond immediately after Malik asked how long he had worked at the hotel. 3 years suddenly felt like a very short amount of time when the question was asked with that kind of calm certainty. The lobby remained completely still, the quiet tension spreading across the polished marble floor like a slow ripple. Several guests had moved closer now, curiosity stronger than their original hesitation. The couple from Denver stood near the concierge desk whispering to each other, while the college student with the phone had not stopped recording for nearly 2 minutes. The situation had grown too strange to ignore. Mercer forced a small smile that did not reach his eyes. I know exactly how hospitality works, he said sharply. And it begins with protecting the hotel from people who try to walk in pretending they belong. The statement sounded rehearsed, like a rule he had repeated many times before. Malik Jefferson listened without interrupting. His expression remained steady, but the silence that followed his question carried a different weight now, because the room had already seen the name on the screen. Emily Carter had not moved from the computer terminal. The owner profile still glowed quietly on the monitor in front of her. Every detail matched the man standing 10 feet away. The system had not changed, and neither had the truth sitting inside it. Mercer, however, was determined to push the moment forward before anyone else could question him. He turned toward the entrance again, as if expecting security to appear at any second. This conversation is over, he said firmly. Security will escort you outside, and we will move on. Malik reached into his pocket again and calmly pulled out his phone. The movement caught several people's attention immediately. Mercer rolled his eyes. Calling your friend again is not going to help you, he said. But Malik was already speaking into the phone before Mercer finished his sentence. Angela, he said quietly, go ahead and open the executive broadcast. On the other end of the line, Angela Ruiz paused for half a second, just long enough to confirm what he meant. Are you sure? She asked. Malik looked slowly around the lobby, his gaze passing across the guests, the employees behind the desk, and finally Daniel Mercer standing stiffly near the entrance. Yes, he replied. It is time. Hundreds of miles away in the Dallas headquarters of Jefferson Hospitality Group, Angela pressed a key on her keyboard. The Horizon Grand Lobby appeared across several large monitors in the corporate operations room. A few members of the executive team who had been reviewing morning reports suddenly looked up as the live camera feed expanded onto the central screen. Angela spoke calmly into her headset. You may want to watch this, she said to the room. Back in Chicago, the front desk computer suddenly refreshed. Emily blinked as the system shifted from the normal reservation page to a different interface entirely. A corporate authorization banner appeared across the top of the screen along with a notification she had never seen before. Executive broadcast channel active. Mercer noticed the change immediately. What did you just do? He demanded, stepping back toward the desk. Emily did not answer. Her eyes were locked on the monitor. Malik slipped the phone back into his pocket and folded his hands calmly in front of him. The lobby lights reflected softly across the marble floor while every guest waited for someone to explain what was happening. Mercer looked from the computer screen to Malik again, frustration rising in his voice. You think pressing buttons is going to impress anyone? He said. Malik's response was quiet but clear enough for the entire lobby to hear. No, he said, but the people watching might find it very interesting. The words caused a ripple of confusion through the room. Mercer frowned. What people? Malik glanced briefly toward the security camera mounted high above the front desk, then returned his eyes to the manager standing in front of him. The ones who actually run this hotel, he answered. For the first time since the confrontation began, Daniel Mercer slowly turned his head toward the camera above the lobby desk. And suddenly the room felt very different. Daniel Mercer stared up at the small security camera mounted high above the lobby desk, as if it had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The quiet confidence that had carried him through the entire confrontation was beginning to crack in ways he could not easily hide anymore. Around him, the Horizon Grand Lobby had become a room full of witnesses. Guests were no longer pretending not to watch. The couple from Denver had stepped fully away from the concierge desk. The college student recording with her phone whispered that something big was about to happen. Even the bellhop near the entrance had stopped moving luggage carts entirely. Malik Jefferson remained exactly where he had been standing, calm and still. The kind of calm that comes from knowing the next moment will explain everything without needing to raise his voice. Daniel turned back toward him, forcing a laugh that sounded thinner than before. "You think someone is watching us," he said, attempting to recover the authority he had been losing for the last several minutes. "This is a hotel lobby, not a television show." Malik did not respond immediately. Instead, he glanced once more at the computer monitor behind the desk, where the executive broadcast banner was still glowing across the screen. Emily Carter had not moved from her spot. Her eyes were fixed on the system as though she understood that whatever happened next would change everything about the situation. Mercer noticed the way several guests were now staring directly at him rather than at Malik. That shift alone made his voice tighten. "This entire scene is unnecessary," he said sharply. "You have made your point. Now you need to leave." Malik finally spoke, his tone even and controlled. "Daniel, you asked how someone could pretend to belong in a place like this." The manager crossed his arms again, trying to appear unimpressed. "Yes," he replied. Malik nodded once. "Let me answer that question for you." The words were not loud, but they carried clearly across the marble floor. Several people leaned closer without realizing it. Malik took one slow step forward toward the front desk, not aggressively, simply closing the distance so the conversation no longer felt like a debate across a room, but a statement made face to face. "You said earlier that hospitality begins with protecting the hotel from people who do not belong," Malik continued. Mercer gave a short nod. "Exactly." Malik's eyes held his for a long second. Then he spoke the sentence that changed the entire room. "Daniel, you did not protect this hotel today. You challenged the person who owns it." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The words seemed to suspend the air itself. Mercer blinked as if he had misheard them. "What did you say?" Malik did not raise his voice. He did not repeat himself with anger. Instead, he turned slightly and gestured toward the computer screen behind the desk, where his profile still remained open for everyone to see. "My name is Malik Jefferson," he said calmly, "founder and owner of Jefferson Hospitality Group." The silence that followed was deeper than anything the lobby had experienced since the moment the confrontation began. Emily Carter slowly looked from the screen to Malik again, the confirmation now spoken out loud. The couple from Denver exchanged stunned expressions. The college student recording whispered the words "owner of the hotel" into her phone, as though repeating them might make the moment more real. Daniel Mercer's face had gone pale. He turned sharply back to the computer monitor as if hoping the information would suddenly disappear, but the system remained exactly the same. "Malik Jefferson, executive owner clearance." The manager opened his mouth, but no explanation came out. For the first time since he had walked across the lobby to confront the man in the hoodie, Daniel Mercer realized the situation had not been under his control at any point. Malik simply watched him quietly, the way someone watches a lesson finally settle in. Then he added one more sentence, calm and unmistakable. "And the people watching through those cameras," Malik said, glancing briefly toward the security lens above them, "are the executive team who help run this company." Across the lobby, several guests gasped softly. The room that had once felt like Mercer's workplace now felt like a courtroom where the truth had just been revealed. The silence inside the Horizon Grand Lobby after Malik Jefferson revealed his identity felt heavier than anything that had happened before. It was the kind of silence that spreads slowly through a room when everyone realizes the story they thought they were watching has suddenly changed direction. Daniel Mercer stood frozen in front of the desk, his eyes moving from Malik to the glowing computer monitor and then up toward the security camera mounted above them. The confidence that had once filled his posture was gone now, replaced by a stiff uncertainty he could not hide. Around the lobby, the guests reacted in quiet waves. The couple from Denver looked openly stunned. The college student recording the scene whispered again to her phone, repeating the words "owner of the hotel" as if she still could not believe what she had heard. Even the bellhop near the entrance shook his head slowly while staring at the front desk. Malik Jefferson remained calm, exactly as he had been from the beginning. He did not raise his voice. He did not step forward in anger. Instead, he stood with the relaxed patience of someone who had already allowed the truth to explain itself. Hundreds of miles away inside the Dallas headquarters of Jefferson Hospitality Group, the executive operations room had become unusually quiet as well. Several members of the leadership team were now watching the live security feed from the Horizon Grand Lobby on a wide conference screen. Angela Ruiz stood near the center table with her headset still connected to Malik's call. She had worked beside him long enough to recognize the moment when patience had run its course and decisions needed to be made. On the large monitor, Daniel Mercer's stunned expression was visible from 3 different camera angles. Angela folded her arms and spoke calmly to the room. Everyone has now seen what happened. No one argued with that statement. Back in Chicago, the tension in the lobby shifted again when the computer behind the desk refreshed a second time. Emily Carter gasped softly as a new notification appeared across the top of the screen. Corporate administrative access granted. The message blinked once, and then the entire employee management panel opened automatically. Mercer turned toward the monitor again, his voice suddenly uncertain. What is that supposed to mean? Emily did not answer immediately because the system was already processing something new. Names began appearing across the management interface along with access credentials and employment status indicators. Mercer saw his own name in the list and felt a sudden tightness in his chest. Malik watched quietly for a moment before speaking again, his voice steady enough for everyone to hear. Daniel, the hospitality industry runs on trust. The manager looked at him helplessly now, as though searching for a response that would return control to the situation. Malik continued calmly. When someone walks through the front door of a hotel, the first responsibility of the staff is to treat them with respect. That rule does not change based on clothing, assumptions, or personal judgment. Several guests nodded quietly. The couple from Denver exchanged another glance that said the words made perfect sense. Mercer swallowed but said nothing. Malik's eyes moved briefly toward the computer screen and then back to the manager standing in front of him. This morning you decided who you believed belonged here, Malik said. You made that decision before asking a single question. The room remained silent except for the faint hum of the lobby. Lights above them. Then Malik spoke the sentence that sealed the moment. And decisions like that cannot represent this company. Behind the desk, the employee management panel flashed again as a red authorization confirmation appeared beside Daniel Mercer's name. The change was immediate and unmistakable. Emily Carter watched in disbelief as the system updated the status field. Executive termination order confirmed. Mercer saw it at the same moment she did. The color drained from his face as the meaning settled in. Malik did not smile. He simply nodded once toward the screen as if acknowledging that the process had finished exactly the way it needed to. Across the lobby, several guests began whispering again while the college student lowered her phone slightly, stunned by how quickly the entire situation had turned. For Daniel Mercer, the realization finally became impossible to deny. The quiet man he had tried to remove from the hotel lobby had never been a stranger at all. He had been the person who built the company that owned the building, and the consequences of the morning were now unfolding in real time. The red authorization confirmation on the computer screen did not disappear. It remained there, steady and undeniable, like a final sentence written at the end of a long argument. Daniel Mercer stared at it, as though the letters might change if he simply waited long enough. But the system did not change. The words remained exactly the same. Executive termination order confirmed. Around the Horizon Grand Lobby, the silence returned once again, but this time it carried a completely different meaning. A few minutes earlier, the room had felt tense and uncertain, like a place where people were not sure what they were witnessing. Now the atmosphere had shifted into something clearer. The truth had settled over the entire space. Guests who had been whispering before now looked openly at the front desk. The couple from Denver exchanged a slow nod, as if the outcome had become obvious the moment Malik Jefferson revealed who he was. The college student who had been recording lowered her phone slightly, still stunned that a quiet morning in a Chicago hotel lobby had turned into something that felt almost unreal. Daniel Mercer slowly lifted his eyes from the screen and looked toward Malik again. The manager's voice, which had been sharp and confident for most of the encounter, now sounded uncertain and strained. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he said quietly. Malik Jefferson did not respond with anger or satisfaction. He simply stood where he had been standing from the beginning, calm and composed, his hands resting loosely at his sides. The same hoodie and worn sneakers that Mercer had dismissed earlier now seemed almost symbolic in the quiet room. Malik looked at the computer screen briefly and then back at the manager. "The system rarely makes mistakes," he said gently. Behind the desk, Emily Carter slowly stepped away from the keyboard, still absorbing the magnitude of what had just happened. The corporate interface remained open on the screen, showing the update to Mercer's employment status along with additional notes from headquarters confirming the executive decision. In Dallas, the leadership team of Jefferson Hospitality Group had already finished reviewing the situation through the live camera feed. Angela Ruiz spoke calmly into her headset as the meeting concluded. "The order has been executed," she said. "Corporate access for the Horizon Grand will remain active for the rest of the morning while we transition management responsibilities." Back in Chicago, the lobby remained quiet except for the soft hum of the lights and the distant sound of traffic outside the glass doors. Daniel Mercer looked around the room slowly, finally noticing the eyes of every guest and employee watching him. The realization settled in with uncomfortable clarity. Only minutes earlier, he had believed he controlled the entire situation. Now he understood that the moment had never belonged to him at all. Malik took a slow breath and stepped slightly closer to the front desk, not in confrontation, but in quiet finality. His voice remained steady as he spoke again. "Hospitality is not about marble floors or expensive furniture," he said. "It is about how people are treated when they walk through the door." The words carried through the lobby without effort. Several guests nodded quietly. Even the bellhop near the entrance stood a little straighter as he listened. Malik's eyes moved briefly across the employees behind the desk before returning to Mercer. "This company was built on a simple idea," he continued. "Every guest deserves respect before anything else." The room stayed silent, allowing the meaning of the statement to settle fully. Then Malik gave a small nod toward Emily Carter. "Miss Carter," he said calmly, reading the name from her badge. "Please contact corporate support. They will guide the staff through the next steps for today's operations." Emily nodded immediately, her voice steadier now. "Yes, sir," she replied. Malik turned once more toward the entrance of the Horizon Grand. The morning sunlight filtered through the glass doors and reflected across the polished marble floor. Before leaving, he paused for one final moment and glanced back at the lobby that had become so still. His voice was quiet but unmistakably clear. "People remember how they are treated long after they forget the building they walked into," he said. With that, Malik Jefferson stepped toward the revolving doors and walked out into the Chicago morning, leaving behind a lobby that would never forget the lesson that had just unfolded inside it.